Hello, everyone. So, let's see. Never done this before. I think some people are coming on. One person has. I see his name is Josh Teresa. 5 others. 10 people are coming on. We'll get started in a few minutes. This is kind of fun for me. My son says hi. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, we'll get started in just a couple more seconds. Let people keep coming on. Looks like the Zatkoffs are watching. Mikey Sneller. Kelly. This is fun. All right. Well, guys, we'll get started now. As you know, my name's Thomas Johnston. I'm the director of tennis at Sea Colony, and this is our first meeting of the minds, a mental toughness segment we're going to do every Saturday at 11 o'clock. We'll do it from 11 to 12, and we'll continue forever. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to have a blast doing this. Let's see, a little bit about Sea Colony. We're in Delaware, if some of you don't know, and we run a tennis program that's probably one of the greatest tennis teaching factories around. It's pretty amazing. So we invite everybody to come. Also, if you're interested in any other social media, we post every day around 11 o'clock on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So with that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, and then I've received a few questions. I'll go over the questions, and then I'll be able to see questions in the comment box below. So as I said earlier, my name's Thomas Johnston. I'm the director of tennis at Sea Colony. I grew up playing tennis in Houston, Texas. Played junior tennis, had national rankings, played all through Texas and throughout the country. Went to college at Pomona and Pitzer colleges. I played for Pomona Pitzer in Claremont, California. I was an All-American there and had a blast. After college, I became a tennis coach for 2 different colleges. One at my alma mater for Pomona Pitzer, and I was there for 5 years. And while I was doing that, I got my master's in sports psychology. 2, after I got my master's, I went over to University of Virginia to do all my doctoral work in sports psych. And after I finished all my coursework, I became the men's tennis coach at UVA, where I coached there for 5 years. After that, I moved on to the resort world, first at a place called Wintergreen Resort outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, and then to Sea Colony, where I've been the last 10 years. I'm getting a little bit older, so I have to read comments. I can read with my glasses on. I wish I should get some LASIK surgery, So a lot of the questions I've received have actually been about what to do during matches and at changeovers and between points. So I'm going to just start there. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on what routines are. So from a professorial perspective, they're called cognitive behavioral routines. Cognitive, what you're thinking, behavioral, what your behaviors are. So the fundamental idea is if you can be consistent in your cognitions and your thoughts, and then consistent in your behaviors, your play will be consistent. So as an example, if you watch, it's an extreme example, but if you see Nadal, he's doing exactly the same thing between points, from where he walks on the court on the baseline, when he leaves a changeover, those bottles are just right. We all know about him, picking his bum a little bit. So, very specific. If you can recall Maria Sharapova between points, she would turn around, straighten her strings, go to the fence, come back, dance a little bit, She'd fix her hair. Then she'd set up, bounce the ball a few times, and serve. So the whole point of it is to be very consistent in what you're doing, and your play will be consistent. With that being said, hey, Craig, and Patty too. So this is fun, guys. I'm going to go over some questions. I was emailed some questions, and then you can always, Betsy Hastings, heck yeah. Nice to see you. I'm going to go over a few questions that were emailed to me or sent via Facebook to our staff, and I'm going to go over those, and then we'll go from there. So Josh from Pennsylvania asked me, when you were coaching a college tennis team, what was your most satisfying win as a team? And what was your most heartbreaking loss and why? Well, all the losses are heartbreaking, I got to tell you that. And all the wins are a lot of fun. But specifically when I was coaching at Virginia, my first year, we played North Carolina. And when I took over, we were 7th in our conference out of 9 teams and 95 in the country. So not too great, you know. And during the end of the season, we were improving, and I felt like we were getting better all the time, getting better. And we played North Carolina, and they were about 15 in the country, and we lose the match 5-2. If you don't know the scoring system, there's a point for doubles. You play 2 out of 3 sets in doubles, and you get 1 point, whoever wins 2 out of 3 doubles matches, and then 6 singles. So 7 total points. We lost 5-2, and it's one of those matches where you're kind of in it the whole time, and you feel like you've got a good chance, but, you know, as a coach, I could sense the players didn't quite believe. After the match, though, what was really cool is every single player on our team thought we could beat them. And now we go to conference. It's 2 weeks later. We go to the conference championships. We play North Carolina in the quarterfinals, and we won the doubles point, and that was a big deal. That was part of the plan, was we pull out this doubles point, we're definitely going to win this thing. Then we played some of our best tennis. Our number 2 player pulled a big upset. We won some other matches. We ended up winning the match 4-3. So just exciting match. Probably the most fun thing about that match was watching the North Carolina coach run to the payphone to tell all the parents not to come the next day to watch them play Georgia Tech in the semifinals. So that was kind of fun. So that was great. Another great one was playing Clemson University. We hadn't beaten them for 30 years, maybe 25, 30 years. And then we finally beat them once again in a conference championship match. And that was fantastic. On an individual fun thing, our number 1 player at the time was a guy named Scott Lebovitz. He was from Georgia, and we're playing down in Florida, and we're playing Florida State, and he's playing number 1, and the match is tied 3-all, so whoever wins the next point is going to win the team match. And Scott and I, now Scott's a senior, and our relationship has progressed so much that with tone of voice I can say, "Here we go, Scott," or I could say, "Let's go, Scott." And just by changing my tone of voice, he would have an idea of what I wanted him to do. And in this particular match, I remember it was match point. Scott was 5'6 and a half, and he's playing a kid who's 6'6". And at the match score was Scott's up 6-5, 40-30 in the third set. And I go, "Here we go, Scott." And the tone of voice let him know that it was time to serve and volley, a big point, be aggressive, go for it. He did. The guy chips his return back. Scott comes in, hits the volley for a winner. That was exciting. That was a ton of fun. Let's see. Heartbreaking. That's not as much fun. My good friend Bob Elliott goes to Duke, and unfortunately, this heartbreaking loss was against Duke. Let's see. We played North Carolina on a Friday, and being the super intelligent person I am, after that match is over, we go eat and everything, and then the next morning we get up, and I take a right instead of a left and if you know the area, they're basically on the same road, So it's not too hard, but I blew it. I take the wrong, I go the wrong direction. And after about 15 minutes, I realized, and now we're going to be late for the match because now we're 30 minutes out of our way. And I go to the payphone because, it's 15 years ago or whatever. It's 1996, 23 years ago now. It's getting pretty long. And I called Jay Lapidus, who's the coach at Duke, and I go, hey, we're going to be late. And he goes, no problem. We'll give you your match warm-up, which is 5 minutes, and then we'll play. So on the way, we started preparing for the match in the van. And the good thing and the smartest thing I probably did was I helped prepare everybody for the last 2 or 3 years before that match even happened. What are we going to do if we're late for a match? What are we going to do if, think of every possible situation and plan for it. So we planned for it. The kids got their shoes on. They started doing stretches. They started talking to each other about game plans. The closer we got, they narrowed their attention and they started locking in on their match. Well, we came out for that match and played fantastic. We were ready to play. I don't think Duke was ready to play us. So we came out. They were like, these guys aren't going to be ready. And hey, Alex. And we come out on fire, and we're up 3. We win the doubles point. We get up 3-2. They win a match 3-3, and now it comes down to our freshmen playing their senior. And I hate to admit I've ever made a mistake in my life, but the mistake I made was I planned for everything, but I never planned with this freshman how he was going to handle it emotionally, how he's going to handle it strategically, mentally, on what he was going to do when the match came right down to him. And lo and behold, he lost a really tight one. And that was heartbreaking because we had it. And I feel like I failed a little bit as a coach there. I thought I did some great things, but, that was a tough one. So, Josh, thanks for those questions. Kind of made me look good and a little bit bad. Let's see. Here's another one. He on you? Craig Brown says hi to Heon. All right. Yeah, that was Heon. You're right. All right. Here's another one. How would you mentally prepare the team before a match that you knew would be close? Well, I feel like this is kind of a trick question because you prepare the same. You prepare for all your matches the same. I don't care if it's a big match, a beginner. Every match you treat the same, and you go through your pre-match rituals, and the day before you do what you need to do, and you go from there. The tricky thing as a college coach is since it's a team, not everybody prepares the same. So, for example, there was a boy named Aaron who played on our team, and his tendency was to always come out flat. So before matches, probably leading up to about an hour before match, he'd start working out to get his energy up, just like everybody else. But when we got about 30 minutes before the match, we literally gave him a cup of coffee. We gave him a big, strong cup of coffee to get him jittery because his problem was he'd come out too calm and a little bit flat. His energy level wouldn't be high enough. Excuse me. So Aaron, we figured that out kind of together. The other thing was we had another boy who would hit. His name was Edwin. He would hit for 5 minutes, and then you go play the match. No warm-up, really, just 5 minutes. The other interesting thing about Edwin was at changeovers, he would not even sit down. He would get a cup of water, maybe stand there drinking water for 10, 15 seconds, and then go to the baseline and just wait. And this was what he did. And, I would never coach anybody to do that, but it worked. It worked. A little bit different, a guy named JR from Cincinnati. We would work him out for an hour before the match. His tendency was to come out super tight. So he'd be super tight and just, we had to wear him out. And when we wore him out, then he'd finally start to relax and he'd let things happen and play. So that's a couple of different things. I think the key here is knowing yourself, and the way to find that out is to notice what patterns you do fall into and start writing them down. And along with your coach, even a parent, you can do this. preparing for a big USTA match is really no different. Craig from Virginia said, "What's the best way to prepare for a USTA singles match against an unknown opponent?" Well, if you're a professional, your preparation starts, the day before, 2 days before, with diet and practice and, so forth. However, I would say, the first thing you want to do is, if you live, I'll just throw out a number, 30 minutes from your match site. In that 30 minutes to the tournament or to your match, you start your plan for how you're going to be focused for the match. So it might be that once you get 15 minutes from the site, you start thinking about strategy, what your strategy is, how you best play. So, for example, I'm real big on when to change the direction of the ball. So you've already decided as you get closer, I'm going to review my strategy. I'm not going to change the direction of the ball for the first shot of every point. Or I'm going to hit only second serves to start the match. All right, so then once you get there, you're playing somebody you don't even know. And that's tough because it'd be nice to have a little information. But there are a few things you can do. For example, you're playing outside. So when you go outside to play a match, what's the first thing you should do? It'd be fun to see answers for that. I don't know if we can or not. I'm learning. But the first thing you want to do is figure out where the sun's coming from. Where's the wind? What are your conditions? If the wind's coming into your face, you can hit the ball a little higher over the net. You can hit the ball a little harder. Hitting with the wind, if you don't have topspin, you might have to hit the ball a little lower. Kalen, check the sun. Awesome. Check the wind. There you go. The sun and the wind. June Kerger, you're a genius. So those are obviously the first couple things you want to do. You want to know your conditions. If it's super cold or colder than usual and windy, the ball's not going to feel good on your string. So you got to get over that right away. So the wind's coming, it's a little cold. The ball's not going to be feeling clean on your string. So get over it, right? The second thing is, what's the first thing you want to see, or what do you want to notice about your opponent? I'm getting some answers here and there. It's kind of fun. Well, I will give you the answer. The first thing you want to notice about your opponent is that person lefty or righty? And it's interesting that Craig Brown asked this question because he's a left one. Mike Sneller wins. He's the first one. He's a genius. Craig Brown's lefty. And I can't tell you, I bet if we asked Craig how many matches he's played and they didn't even realize he was left-handed for a little bit, he's probably played whole sets, maybe even matches where they didn't even notice he was left-handed. Alex comes up with a great answer. What's the second thing you should notice? Well, one or two-handed backhand. If they've got a one-handed backhand, they're going to be weak up high. You don't have any strength hitting backhands from up high. So we'll the first thing we'll coach our players to do is, do you have one or two-handed backhand? Then check. Yep. Then you want to see if they've got a two-handed backhand, then down low. So if you've got a good slice, you can keep them out of their comfort zone, right? So getting the ball down low is the weakness to two-handed. I have a two-handed backhand. I don't like those balls that are really low. I can't do much with that ball. I need to let go and hit my one-handed slice. Probably the next thing you want to do is you want to see which side they're spinning the ball more on. Usually, not always, but the side they spin the ball more on, they're better, usually. So, for example, let's use someone we all know, Rafael Nadal. Forehand, incredible, right? The forehand's unbelievable and has a ton of spin. His backhand obviously is fantastic. He's one of the best players of all time, so it's not like he has a weakness. But the spin of the ball, usually that side, they'll spin more. I'm trying to think of another example. Steve Johnston slices that backhand. He doesn't miss backhands. It might not be his weapon, but he's very consistent with that slice. Another thing is you want to see which side are they backing up on. So every time I hit a forehand in the warm-up and I watch someone backing up on their forehand side and they're holding the ground on their backhand, probably they're better with their backhand side. Probably. So It's not, nothing's 100%, but the side they back up on more is usually the weaker side. Okay? Let's see. Those are some fundamental things you can do. If they come to the net and you've got a good enough eye, check out their grips, right? So if they've got a good continental grip, or they have the right grips for their volleys, they're probably good at volleying. Another thing you can check on in the backcourt is when you're starting the match, if they have a good slice, they might have really good volleys as well, because slicing the ball and hitting volleys is very similar. So they've got a good backhand slice, or they start chipping their forehand a little bit. If they might not know it, but their volleys are probably pretty solid. Let's see. When they come to net, it's a warm up, so you're not trying to hit the ball away from them. But check their volleys. Check how close they get to the net when they're warming up. If they're on top of it, well, right off the bat, you know that they like to get really close, and just pay attention. Maybe you want to lob a little bit. That's one of the things that we see when we teach, that people don't lob nearly enough. Most recreational players don't run back great for overheads and just smash an overhead for winner. It's different at the pro level. You get a lob at the pro level, and you're putting away your overhead. Let's see. Let's move on to another question. That was a pretty good one. Oh, John from Virginia. Mentally, what's the difference in the best players you coached? Well, I'll tell you, super good at routines. So kind of back to the very beginning, people mentioned routines. Really, really good at routines. And basically what that means is they're unbelievably good at staying in the moment. So, they're using the routines to stay in the present. They're not too far out into the future. They're not dwelling on the past. So the routines are a great tool to use to keep you in the moment. That's one thing. The other is, well, let me back up a little bit. Let's go into more details with the routines. They're called cognitive behavioral routines, like I talked about. Between points, there's 4 fundamental steps. So we call them the 4 R's. So the first step is that you release the last point. And primarily, you release that point emotionally. You got to get rid of it. It's done. I don't care if you played a great point or a horrible point or a mediocre point. That last point is done. And you need to have some kind of tool to help you get rid of it. In doubles, you'll see people high-fiving, for example. Or you might see a player towel off in singles or go to the fence. So the first R is to release the last point. And one of the reasons you want to release it emotionally is you can think logically. And the second step is to review what just happened. So how did you win that point? How did you lose the point? People need to start asking themselves, what did I do to win that previous point? What did I do to lose that point? So it might be that you didn't even do anything wrong, but you still lost a point. So the second step is you review the last point, which leads you into the third step, which is to re-strategize. So first you've released, then you review, and now you re-strategize. So you either keep doing what's working, or you change your game plan. So the advantage of continually doing this, asking yourself, how did you win and lose points, is you're basically, I'm going to use a word that I've heard a lot on TV lately, stockpiling. You're stockpiling information. So you're putting it in a little bank, and now you're a little computer, and you're getting information, and you're cataloging it. Maybe the guy missed backhand. When I come to net, he can't pass me off his backhand, or so forth. Then the fourth step is your ritual stage. So your ritual stage is the one that we see mostly on TV. So someone will set up, they'll bounce the ball. Allison Lewis Lee, haven't seen or heard from you in ages. Nice to hear you. Nice to see you. So you'll set up, the typical thing is you'll set up, you'll bounce the ball, you'll choose where you're going to serve, type of serve, location, and then maybe you'll take a breath and then you'll serve. So these routines are really your bread and butter during a match. So I'm thinking of one player who was extremely good. I coached. He got up to about 60 in the world. He did his routine, but he was gifted at the second and third steps. He knew within a couple of minutes, literally, what his opponent was strong at, what his opponent was weak at. And I remember watching a match once in college, and we're watching one of the other teammates on the Virginia team, and Brian's sitting next to me, and we're watching this kid Huntley, and Brian goes, what he needs to do is this, this, and this. And I've been watching the match for about 10 minutes, and I'd pretty much come to that conclusion at this point. But I still was kind of wondering. I wasn't positive. And Brian walked up and said it in about a minute. And that was pretty impressive. So he was literally gifted at strategy. And that I think that's one of the biggest differences is the routines during match play. They're extremely, extremely good at staying in the moment. And then practice was a whole nother ballgame. Practice was efficient. So what you or me might need to do, and it would take us, say, 3 hours of practice, Brian would do it in an hour and a half. So he was unbelievably good at locking in and doing what he needed to do at practice. The other thing that he did that was so amazing at practice, which we've all done to a certain degree, but he would always have a plan for what he wanted to do during practice, always. And the thing that he was so good at doing was he would redefine what success was in practice. If the day was he wanted to work technically on his slice backhand, he would slice his backhand, say 50, 70% of the time. And it didn't matter if he won the point or lost the point. It didn't matter. He would practice that slice. And then he'd go, hey, coach, I need to practice that short little slice. A friend of mine, Rich, we were talking about hitting that short little slice and how effective it is. Well, he'd practice that. Then he'd practice that little inside slice. We got the inside of the ball that would tail away from you. Then he'd practice that floaty slice. And he didn't care if he won the rally or won the backcourt game or if he was doing a practice set or a challenge match or anything. He didn't care. He'd practice that drive slice. So he was really, really good at doing that. That was pretty incredible. Let's see. Let's go to another question here. Well, Roy from Delaware asked this one. When considering routine your routines before points at the recreational level, he says we repeat mistakes and don't always learn from them, which can get us negative sometimes. He says, how do you learn or remember from a point that didn't go the way you wanted constructively, even if it's repetitive? And then here's the last one. He says, the more perfectionist you have in you, the harder it is. Well, I'm going to address one major point of this, the perfectionism. So perfectionism is obviously impossible. I don't know anyone who's perfect. I can't stand it when I make mistakes and they happen on a daily basis. And I have a good buddy who says, hey, you learn from your mistakes. Well, my response is I'm tired of making mistakes. And I want to be perfect, but I'm not. And I understand that. So you've got to be open to that. So the first thing you've got to understand is perfectionism. Being perfect is impossible. I had a great mentor when I was doing my master's out in California from a guy named Ken Ravizza. He was the big sports psychologist for the California Angels. And he said, Thomas, you think you're perfect, take the bathtub test. And I said, oh gosh, Ken, what's the bathtub test? And he goes, fill up a bathtub, about 2 inches of water. Step in. If you hit bottom, you're not perfect. Well, it's safe to say that I'm not perfect. I never actually took the bathtub test, but I'm confident that Ken was right. Let's see. The second thing is statistically, if you look at a match that say 6-4, 6-4, you're only winning about 52% of the points. So, emotionally, you've got to be okay with being imperfect. At the professional level, the players that are in the top 10, Josh, who's our senior professional at Sea Colony, said that at the top, the statistics from top 10 players in the year 2017 are those guys were winning 53% of the points. That's not much, you know. Baseball's ridiculous. You're unsuccessful 7 out of 10 times. That means you're successful 3. You're in the Hall of Fame. You know, you're hitting 300. You're in the Hall of Fame. You're on your way. So the perfectionism is a really tough one. Now, with that being said, how do you remember? Well, we're back to routines again. So it's just like anything. You've got to practice your routines. You can't just all of a sudden remember everything you've done. So you start practicing your routines. So if it's a match, hey, you focus on steps 1 and step 2, and you go, hey, how am I every point? Maybe you ask your doubles partner, how do we win that point? How do we lose that point? So you go through that routine and you focus on that. And if you ask yourself, how did you win the point or how did you lose the point enough, you're going to be more successful. And I guarantee you'll start to remember, and you'll start to file away information, and you'll become a better player for it. The other thing that relates to that is this whole definition of success. So one of the things I'm really big on is redefining what success is. So success isn't always winning a point. I have an acquaintance who's big marketing guru, and we were talking one day, and we were talking about sports psych and playing tennis and just all areas of life. And he said, hey, I've got this great concept for you. And I said, okay, well, what is it? And he goes, well, imagine a window pane. So, you know, a window pane. You've got four squares. He goes, the top left one, put in that one, you did the right thing right. So what you're doing is you're doing the right thing and you did it right. So 2 components of that. You did the right thing, you did it right. So for example, the right shot was to hit a volley at the tee. It was the right shot and you did it the right way. In another box, you'd say, oh, I did the right thing, but I did it wrong. So you tried to hit the tee, so you did the right thing, but you missed your shot. So you did the right thing, but you just missed your shot. Or maybe you did the right thing and you did it right, and they dig it out and they hit a weird lob volley over your head. Well, that's success. As a coach, I'm thinking that's successful. That's a successful point. So you did the right thing. You did it right. Sometimes you win the point. Sometimes you don't. You did the right thing in the other box and you missed. So to me, that's a success also because you chose the right shot. Now, if you're consistently missing, we've got to work on maybe concentration, or maybe we need to work on your technique. Now, another box would be you did the wrong thing, but you did it right. So, for example, the shot required that you go, say, we'll go a real point. I served, the return came back to me, and I decided to go down the line, and I hit a winner. Well, the percentage play was going right back to the server. So I did the right thing, made my serve. It came back. I chose the wrong shot, and I go down the line, and I actually make it. So I did the wrong thing, but I did it right. The problem with that is now people get positive affirmations and positive feelings for doing the wrong thing, and they did it right, so now they're more apt to do it again. So that's a tough one. Then in the fourth square, which is kind of obvious, you did the wrong thing, you did it wrong. So in the previous example, I served, the return came back, I chose the wrong shot, I went down the line, and I missed it. So, coming full circle, what success is we want to do the right thing right, obviously. Now, that doesn't mean you always win the point. We also could do the right thing wrong. To me, that's success. Unfortunately, you could do the wrong thing right. That's a success, but it's going to bite you in the bum eventually, because eventually you'll do the wrong thing wrong. So I love this concept because it applies to everything, not just tennis. It applies into business. It applies to marketing. It applies to pretty much everything you do in life. Relationships. We won't talk about relationships. That's a 5-hour conversation on this Facebook Live. So anyway, that's where we go with there. Let me look and see a couple other questions that were sent to me. Fred from Maryland. Some people know him a different name, but I've got Fred from Maryland. He says, at the recreational level, how do I maintain my concentration at changeovers? Well, that's a great question, because all my research at Virginia when I was doing my doctoral work was on changeovers. So it's what the pros were doing at changeovers. And we called it the 60-second solution. So you get a minute and a half. So basically 15 seconds, in general, to get to the chair. You sit down and you've got your minute to kind of go back to your routines again. And then you have 15 seconds to go out. So you'd sit down and you relax. You kind of, once again, you release the last couple of games. Then you'd review them, come up with new plans, and then you'd have a little ritual before you walked out there. So part of that ritual you can see with Nadal's. If you try to do this at the recreational level, you're kind of isolating yourself from everybody. Funny I use the word isolation. So the bottom line is, I was playing some doubles the other day, and there's 4 of us, and we're changing sides. Now we're all talking, and the trick is, how quickly can I get my act together before I go back out and have to serve or receive or play a point? So I've developed a little routine for myself. So I'll talk to everybody, joke around, and then as soon as I walk out there, I'll transfer my racket to my dominant hand, and I'll walk out there and I'll start preparing myself mentally. If it's for serving, I've already decided where I'm going to serve. So I've made up my mind where I'm going to hit my serve the first 2 points. If I do that, I don't have to think. And thinking, as we all know in sports, is highly overrated. I don't want to think too much. I want things to be automatic. I want to be able to just see ball, hit ball. So one of the things I coach a lot of people to do is plan for what you're going to do, so it's not a big surprise. If you look at the statistics, the average rally at the professional level for men's and women's tennis is 3.6 shots in singles. Well, Alex and I started keeping stats about, Alex, I think it's probably 2.5 years. It's been about 2.5 years. And we've kept stats now for about 2.5 years on the average length of a rally in doubles. Anybody know what it is? I'll wait for a second here. Anybody know? The average length of a rally in doubles. All right, so here's the answer. I'm sure they'll start coming in. It's 3.2 shots. So if you can make your serve and make a solid shot right after that, you're not going to... Mike Sneller, wrong. You said 4. The average rally is 3.2 in doubles, Mike. If Mike could hit 2 shots in, he'd be a lot better. So, Mike, I have to tease you. Claire Smith, 2. Close, but it's 3.2. And so the idea then is you don't want to be thinking. You've already decided what you're going to do before the point starts. So I would say to Fred, make sure that, at the changeover, you're talking to your friends, but then on that walk out to the baseline to serve or receive, or the walk to the service line, so your partner's receiving partner's location, or if you're at the net, you've already started planning for how you're going to handle the first shot. Okay, so you don't want to be thinking. Let's see. Here's another one. How do I stay mentally tough to bring home the win after winning a tough first set? Classic meltdown, right? The classic letdown, I should say. I've answered this question a million times. I'm sure we all have our answers. We're probably all know intellectually what the answer is. Doing it's a whole nother ball game. But we're back to routines again. Sticking to your routines. You also got to know that what their tendencies are. The tendency is when you get ahead, is to kind of take that breath, let down, relax, kind of go, okay. And you've got to understand the other person is going to resist now. So if you're playing doubles or singles, the other team is definitely going to resist. So it's very important to have a solid game plan of what you're going to do when you receive or when you're serving, when you go back out there. What I coach most players to do is to do whatever they need to do to put pressure on their opponents. So it might be that they serve and volley a little bit more. It might be that They lob more because the other team is feeling pressure from always lobbing. I've noticed that, I still don't mind too much if people lob, but if they lob for 2 straight hours, it gets tiring nowadays, and it's harder to put away overhead. So there's lots of different ways of putting pressure on people. One, you can attack them. You could serve and volley. You could hit the first shot, come on in. You could rip your return at the net person. You could bring your partner back and start just hitting a bazillion balls in. That puts pressure on people. So, there's a lot of different ways of doing that. All right. I see this. So the purpose of the routine is to get you into Zen, from Janice. Yeah, pretty much. The whole purpose is to get you to play one point at a time, is to get you to play one shot at a time, really, because you want to be in the here and now. So, really, sports psych is started with the inner game of tennis. And it started really with a lot of Eastern thought of a lot of breathing exercise, a lot of staying in the moment. So that's always pretty interesting. There's a lot of really good books out there. It made me start thinking about. Brad Gilbert's got a good book. He talks a lot about Winning Ugly, right? The name of his book. There's a great book out there called Man's Search for Meaning, and it's all about this man who lived through the Holocaust and then made a decision he felt to live, and that he had free will. I know it's getting kind of deep now, but you do have free will. So when you're out there on the court, you get to think what you want to think. No one's forcing you to do anything. These are all choices. There's a question. How do you avoid a letdown going into a third set tiebreaker? This is from Butch Rogers. How do you avoid a letdown going into a third set tiebreaker after winning the second set? Oh, Charlie Rogers. Yeah, that third set breaker. Well, in our camps at Sea Colony, we practice third set breakers. So first of all, the first thing to do is to practice them. No one practices them. All of a sudden, y'all go out there and you're playing one, but they're different. So I would say the initial thing you want to do is you want to practice them. The second thing is adhere to those routines. You gotta stick to those routines. I'm a big proponent of being aggressive. I want you to be aggressive. It doesn't mean you need to go for a winner. Tom Beret, Man's Search. That's a great book. Man's Search for Meaning. Tom Beret is familiar with that one. So back to the third set breaker. One, start practicing them. Practice the Komen way. Don't just practice the traditional way of switching points after 6. Make sure that you go ahead and switch sides after every 5 points. Or is it every 4? Whatever, this Komen thing's new to me. The other thing is, in the tiebreaker, if you look at the statistics, first serve percentage is huge, especially under stress. So my advice would be, unless you got the Bobby Elliott serve or the Tom Beret serve serving out of a tree, then you hit a lot of second serves in. You don't want to be going for first serve. So really, maybe you're hitting something in between a first and second serve, depending upon your level. I would say also, I would make sure in doubles match, and routines are unbelievably important, obviously, is that you're communicating with your partner. So it's real easy under stress to kind of go away from your partner, but regardless, you've got to go back and every single point talk to your partner. That would be another way of defining what success is. Tom Beret, what do you say? That was an unintentional rhyme, by the way. Can you talk a bit more about focusing on the process versus the outcome? Obviously, this is the big deal. We're back to routines, but just the whole concept of redefining what success is. Success is obviously winning the point. That ultimately is success. But really, it's doing the right thing. Are you doing your routine? So when I was coaching at Virginia, we decided that success was 3 basic things, and we came back to this with the team. It was doing your routines. So doing your routines before points, in between points, doing your routines at changeovers, doing your routine before the match started, doing your pre-practice routines, okay? So the idea then was to get into the process and to keep practicing the right way and keep playing the matches the right way. So in other words, the one would be doing your routines. 2, are you playing smart? So success was, did you play smart? And 3 was simply running as fast as you could for every ball and then doing your routines. And success was, if you did those 3 things, you won the match. You didn't necessarily get the W, but you were a winner in that match. I'm thinking back to college. I played a guy and I beat him 0-0, and he was in the top 20 in Division III, and I was top 20 in Division III, and I won 11-3 all games. I guarantee you, I won, the no ad scoring. I guarantee you that after a while, he got out of the moment. And he was thinking about, God, I lost another 3-all game. And he was just like, oh my God, another 3-all game's coming up. And so he got out of the process and out of the moment. Also have you always have to say, a good one. And then unfortunately a bad story is I played a guy in the round of 16 at nationals in college, and I lost 7-6, 7-6. And I was so disappointed. I played really well. After the match, I was all disappointed, and I must admit, shed a few tears. And my coach is like, you've got nothing to be ashamed about or sad about. And I'm like, I should have won that match, And he goes, do you realize that Steve, I still remember the kid's name, Steve, made 3 unforced errors that entire match, and you made about 6, and you double faulted once? And I was like, wow. And, I was still disappointed, but, it was kind of an eye-opener. It was the first, looking back, it was the first time that I really started to understand that winning wasn't necessarily always winning the match. As a coach, I preach this a lot. Can you stay in the moment? Can you do your routines? Make success doing your routines. Make success things that you can control. Tom, I hope that addressed a little bit of what you're asking about. Let's see. Janice, do you recommend mindfulness meditation before playing? It really depends upon the individual. I'll tell you how I used to prepare for matches is about 30 minutes before the match started, and I'd go be by myself. I'd listen to music. I'd stretch out. I'd imagine myself playing great points. I wouldn't necessarily call it meditation, but it was definitely a form of meditation. I'd imagine myself playing great points. I would I would do imagery, and I would play imaginary points in my head, and play extended points, and they'd always have a great outcome, of course. And then the second thing for me is after I did that is I would get my energy way up. So once I got even close to the match, I did better when I got my energy very, very high up. Bob Elliott. I play doubles with Bob. He asked this question: how do you deal with a doubles partner that tells jokes between points? Well, I guess I'm the person telling the jokes between points. You either learn to ignore me, or you laugh and you move on, and you just accept the fact that, I'm going to distract you, and then you've got to move on. So, Bob, I appreciate the question. I don't think it really bothers you. It might bother some other people, but Bob's pretty loose, and I don't think it really bugs him too much, unless he's not being honest with me. Tom Schneider, is his name Pete? Not sure, but who you're referring to, but I don't know. Pete, I probably played someone named Pete. Let's see, we've got about 10 minutes left. Here's an off-the-wall question. Who was your favorite coach as a kid, and why? Well, you know what? I guess, I had a couple. My very first coach, his name was Hector Salazar. And he was, I think, probably the greatest coach for me because he made it fun. And he's probably the reason I played tennis to begin with. Because I played with him, we had a blast, he made it fun. And, I just wanted to go play tennis. He helped instill that love. So I guess him. From a strategical perspective, it was a guy named Terry Neudecker who introduced to me the concept of when to change the direction of the ball. And that's your fundamental strategy of tennis. And then after college, I played satellites for about a year. And a guy named Bobby Dallin reiterated this concept of changing the direction of the ball. And he really got me to pay attention to strategy. I think a lot of times I was just out there hitting balls cross court. Like people say, what's your strategy? Oh, well, hit the ball cross court. And I just didn't understand the concept of how to change the direction of the ball or when to change it, what the right thing to do. I was taught, hit it where they ain't. So if the person's standing over there, you hit it over there, you make a move. And that's not always the best thing to do. I mean, there's too many variables involved. Maybe we'll talk about change of direction in one of our videos that we are posting on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, or we'll do a segment. Maybe we'll do a segment next week and go into detail on it when we do this Facebook Live again next Saturday at 11. Let's see. I think, the love, that was a big one. Let's see. Well, there's another question. I'm seeing some. Helen Glazer says, can you speak more specifically about how you coach players on ways to release the last point as step one of the routine? Yes, it's a great question, Helen. I'd say there's a variety of techniques. The one you kind of see most commonly is you'll see people straighten the strings and towel off. Well, I coach our players to towel off every point in singles because I use it as it's a symbol of wiping off the last point. I grew up in Houston, super humid. People think Delaware is humid in the summer. Houston's out of control. So you learn to go to the towel and you have to dry off your grip, dry off your hands every single point. So it kind of taught me at a young age to do that. And I didn't realize that it was getting me to slow down and it was getting me ready to play the next point. It's kind of an accident. Toweling off's a great one. I've coached a lot of specifically junior boys to take their hat off. And now they've taken their hat off. The last point is over. And when they put their hat back on, they actually usually have to straighten a little bit and it gets them to slow down. So those are three good techniques in straighten your strings, the hat, toweling off. The Clemson coach, and I've used this one also, is he coached his players to go to the fence in singles. And once they touched the fence, the last point was done. So it's like you'd hear him say, fence it. And he'd fence it, and then the last point was done. And that was the signal that time to move on. Doubles, I think in some ways doubles is a lot easier for some people and more difficult, obviously, for others. But once you should always, we coach our players to talk and touch at the tee. So we have people meet at the tee, and then advice tennis is now with COVID. Julie Anderson, not sure exactly what that means. Oh, I see. No, I get it, Julie. I'll answer that in a second. So in doubles, you go to the tee and you talk and you touch. So after the point's over, you meet at the tee, you touch. Now the last point is done. Now you move into, hey, how do we win that point? How do we lose that point? So it's a meeting of the minds. And then you both go back to your respective position on the court and you do your routine to get ready to play the next point. Tennis now with COVID. That's a good one, Julie. I'm not sure I want to go out on a limb yet with that, but I will say that at home, I've been doing tennis-specific exercises. I've actually gone now and I've got a junior net and I put it out in the street. So we're starting to hit a little bit. I'm not real sure about what we're going to do once we start up playing tennis, but I do know we're going to be extremely careful and we're going to make sure that everybody stays safe. So, I would not advise anybody playing tennis right now, especially with the governor we have here in Delaware and the suggestions and rules that we have here. If I was going to play tennis, I would stay far, far away. if you release first, then review, yes, it is. But now since you released emotionally, you can actually think. So now you can go objectively what happened. And that leads you into the third step, which is re-strategize. Come up with a new plan or keep doing what you've been doing. And then the fourth step would be your ritual phase. So that's a good one, Janice, because I want to be real clear about that. Mary Egan, good to see your face. Can you provide some exercises to do while being isolated? Well, Mary, fancy that, or funny that you'd ask that question, but if you look on our YouTube account, Sea Colony, or Sea Colony Tennis Facebook account, we've been posting different physical exercises. Alex, our assistant director, just posted a doubles strategy video, and we also posted all the exercise videos that I'm doing on Mondays are tennis specific, and I actually do them with the racket. On Wednesdays, we're doing technique. Last Wednesday, I did a forehand technical tip. This coming Wednesday, Alex is doing a one-handed backhand tip. And I would say one thing you can do is, keep practicing swinging your racket. There's footwork drills you can do and so forth. Let's see. Oh, there's another person. Hi, Rachel. June, thanks for coming. Hope to see you again next week. I'm going to wrap up, guys, now. I want to go over a couple of things. First of all, thanks for visiting with me. We're going to do this every Saturday. And Claire Smith, how can Junior stay... Oh, there's one last question. How can Junior stay mentally tough during this time? Claire, I will answer your question via Facebook. I'll text you. I'm assuming I can do that. I'll figure it out if I can't, but I will definitely do that. But I do want to say thanks to everybody. I want to thank everybody I'm working with, specifically the staff at Sea Colony Tennis, Krista, Alex, Josh. There's also a lot of people we've been working with the social media, with Haley and Claudia. So I'm going to forget people, and then also all the people that are watching this. So thanks for watching. We're going to do this again next Saturday at 11. I might even start doing it at another time if we get the interest. It's fun for me to do. If you have any suggestions or have any questions that I didn't answer and you want to ask more of them, go ahead. I'd be happy to get back to you. And then bottom line, just to kind of wrap up from today, conceptually, redefining success. That's huge. Your routines. I love the little 4 squares of do the right thing right. You sometimes do the right thing, but you do it wrong. Sometimes you do the wrong thing, but you do it right. And sometimes you do the wrong thing and you do it wrong. So anyway, thanks for watching. And I'm going to wrap it up now. And hope to see y'all or hear from y'all next Saturday. And the name of the Brad Gilbert's called Winning Ugly. And Terry, yes, we are going to archive it. And we will get back to you guys soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.